Hi, everyone. This is Functional Training Zone with our podcast, The Uncommon Connector. And today we are going to speak with Jeremy Butler. He is a retired NFL player for the Baltimore Ravens. We're very excited to speak to him, and we're talking about life after the NFL.
There is no one else in creation like you. There's nobody like you. And what you've come to do and what you have to offer is like no other.
So we will touch upon the NFL, but we're going to mainly focus on life after that. I'm super excited about this because
Sponsored by.
I do live in the DMV area. I have done a tour of the Raven Stadium, and it's a pretty nice facility. So I was pretty impressed. I'm so happy that you're going to tell us all about all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, and of course, life after. So I'm really excited to speak to you, Jeremy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on. So I think it's gonna be a great conversation. But yeah, some good stuff. Football, life after ball. So I'm excited.
Great, me too. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, really? I mean, how did this all start? Your passion for football, where did you start out? Of course, everyone says they've played since they were a little kid. I came from no organized sports, right? So I can't even lend to that experience and the work that it took to get there.
Yeah, so and I'm bad at talking about myself. So let me see. For me, like same old story, like cliche story. It started for me about 7, 8 years old in Sarasota. I used to play football outside in the streets all day, and then come in the house, play the game, watch it on TV, and from there, just I believed I can get there, and I dedicated myself to it. I just had a dream that I want to play in the NFL one day, and from that day on, like I just never stopped thinking about it, dreaming about it, talking about it. Even in my sleep, every single day, that's all I thought about was the NFL and football. So that's where my, I guess, origin story started with my passion to play ball, and I just kept that fire burning until I was blessed to have the opportunity to play in the NFL. So that's pretty basic story of how I got started into playing sports.
Okay, and what college did you go to?
So I attended the University of Tennessee Martin, so a small Division I school. So it don't matter. That's one thing I would love for kids to understand is it don't matter what school you go to. You don't have to be at the biggest schools. If you can play ball, and if you do your part, they'll find you. They'll come get you where you are.
Okay, great. That's really great to know. And about how long would you say were you in the NFL?
5 years. I think four football seasons, but 5 years total. So yeah, I got a chance to have a little bit of longevity. So I appreciate the time I had there.
Great. Okay. So tell me what the road to the NFL is like, right? All I know is that there's a combine and people go to it. Is that when you're selected to go?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So how does that
So,
work? Did you go to the combine?
no, I didn't. I didn't. So the way the combine works is they select certain players from all of the different schools, the seniors, some juniors, and then they go to the combine in Indianapolis and they run their 40, they do their measurements, and they kind of just get tested to kind of see like, what guys are, have the best speed, best size and whatnot. And those are the more like popular players, the big name guys, the guys at the bigger schools. But you also get to do pro days where you actually get to train and bring the scouts out to you. So scouts came to my small school in little Tennessee, Little Martin, Tennessee to see me, which made me feel special. But they came out seeing me, got to see me do my thing. And so the way the process is once you graduate or once you elect for the NFL as a junior, you get an agent and then the process starts. They go to contacting teams contact you, and they start doing CIA, FBI work on your background, your history, every single grade you've ever had, every referral. They pull all your information and just research. And and they go from there as far as selecting the best guys to play at the next level.
So that's a very interesting point that you brought up. They do somewhat of a background check. It's not just based on your pure talent, it's also based on a bit of your history as a person.
Yeah, and from that during that phase, I realized like, two things. Like something my mom always told me was, keep your nose clean. Just treat people the right way. Never know who you meet on the way up. You never know what connection wasn't important or somebody's gonna vouch for you. You just never know. So treat everybody with respect, keep your nose clean, stay out of trouble, hang with the right people. You just never know how things from your past can come up and affect opportunities. So that was one. And two, just to be honest, if I've ever made a mistake or anything that I thought I can get away with, it's just better to be honest because more times than not, it'll come back up, it'll resurface. And the best thing you can do is just be honest about any mistakes, anything you've done in the past that you learned from or regret. Because I've seen guys literally lose opportunities at their dream because they thought something that happened in high school, they could hide it and get away with it. And a scout brings it up, and literally because you lied about it, that kept you from going into the NFL. So just learning to be honest about your past and learning to just do your best.
Wow, that's really good advice. Thank you. When you were in college, did you study anything in particular? Did you have specific major?
So for me, it was social economics. I love just the idea of just how does society work? How does the people influence society? How does society, dictate like just as far as where the money is going, the economy. So social economics is what I was really driven and like passionate about learning how people work, how communities work, how society works, how the economy works. So that was my thing in college.
And did you graduate with that major?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So you have your undergrad in social economics.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Great. Okay,
Mom
so
won't let me leave college without that degree.
that that's awesome. That's good to know because what we also want to talk about is life after the NFL, right? You're obviously retired now. You don't play for the Ravens anymore. You don't play for any professional organization anymore. And I want to know what that transition was like. I want to know where you went after that and what was your mindset when you decided, you know what, I've I've done all I can do here in this career field, being a professional football player, and now I want to transition to something else. And what's that feeling like? Is it scary? Did you feel embraced by it? Did you have a mentor? Did you work with somebody? And how did you overcome those fears, if you had any?
Oh, so yeah, we get into the meat and potatoes of the journey. So yeah, that's a great question. And that I would, to be honest, it's probably some of the scariest times of my life. I retired around 28, 29 years old. And so when you walk away from something that like you've built your whole life towards and around, it can be scary. And like I've literally only developed skills to be a professional athlete. I've only developed football skills. And so walking away from that, not knowing, well, okay, I've made some good money, but I have a child to provide for. I have my girl at the time who's not my wife. Like I'm an adult now. I have responsibilities. So it was scary. And no, I didn't have any mentors, but I reached out to, I found something fast, as far as just asking for help. I just didn't stop bugging guys about like, hey, other guys who's retired, just hey, what's the process like? What should I do? What are you doing now? What things are you passionate about? Like, do you invest your money? So I just started asking and like around networking. But the biggest thing that like challenged me the most was just upstairs. Like I think mentally, nothing really prepares you for like the last day you will ever play the game of like the game you love of sports. And so when you really walk away from that and it's like you can't go back in that door, like that is a real reality check. And having to deal with the ups and downs, anxiety, depression at times, and having to pick myself back up and realize like, okay, life goes on. Like, what are you gonna do next? Who are you gonna become next? And that led me into like, okay, like I really love helping children. I really love pouring back into the youth. And I really love like how can I help the youth and how can I make it make sense for my life to where I can provide for my family and do what I love as well. And day by day, I started picking pieces up together where it's like, okay, I know I'm coachable. I learned that from sports. I just need to get a mentor who can coach me. I know I'll listen and follow his advice. I know I'm disciplined and hardworking. I learned that from sports. So I just got to find the right things to be disciplined in and the right things to work hard at. And so I just realized that a lot of the things from sports I could take and carry over into being an entrepreneur, taking over into my next passion. And that led me into speaking. I started to realize like, I had influence with talking to younger generations. For whatever reason, I think it's because of that jersey in the back that, okay, you made it somewhere I want to go. So yeah, I'm gonna listen to you, and so with that opportunity, I just took advantage, like, okay, listen to what I'm telling you. I'm gonna give you some real advice. And then from there, I want to be a mentor and support to help you actually build your life up. So you don't have to hit rock bottom when you transition through life like I did. So that's what my journey led me after sports. And I wouldn't have it no other way. Like I wouldn't change nothing about it. The ups, the downs, the scary times, the all of it. I embraced all of it.
Right, right, right. Did you ever consider going back to school, or did you ever get any additional courses in public speaking, any certifications, anything like that
Um,
to just start on your journey for life after?
I thought about it, and I do not want to go back to school. And so, but what I ended up doing was like, for my profession, what I did was I reached out like part of that network and I found other great speakers and guys who are already successful in the lane I'm trying to go in. And I did sign up into kind of like an association, Next Level Speakers Academy. So it's an
Okay.
academy with like Eric Thomas, Jeremy Anderson, Inky, and all of these guys, like just some of the best speakers in my lane and my niche, and just signed up to that, got into a community around like-minded individuals, got coaching, got courses, programs, and certifications within that to actually help me kind of really be confident and understand how to move through my industry.
Okay, great. What was the name of that again? I'm sorry.
Next Level Speakers Academy.
Next Level Speakers Academy. Okay, great. I just wanted to highlight that for our listeners. And what would you say was the most valuable thing that you learned out of that, and how it pertained to your job experience? Well, to you building your own brand and, building your own business.
It's so many nuggets in that. Picking one is going to be pretty tough, but I would say understanding business. Because initially I'm thinking like, okay, if I can speak great, people should it should be easy to get opportunities. It should be easy to get in front of kids. Like I have experience and I can help these kids. So you think that doors are just gonna fly open for you, but that's not how it works. So understanding how business works around like a talent or a gift like speaking and under or a profession like speaking, and then okay, how do I market myself? How do I like express the value I have to offer in a way that solves a problem? How do I actually convert like opportunities into like, presentations, or how do I actually structure and organize what I'm doing? You can't just go in a room and think you can talk to any and everybody at will. It's like, okay, what do they need to hear me speak about? How do I structure my speech? How do I practice and get reps on my speeches? How do I actually connect and network with the right opportunities? How do I market the value I have to offer in a professional way? So just learning the business around speaking, that changed everything for me because I'm thinking I can just go in here, former NFL player, they'll love to allow me to come in, but it doesn't work that way. So just the business side of speaking really helped me a lot. And that's what they really, really harp on.
That's really interesting. So I just want to kind of highlight that just because of who you were doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get what you want automagically, right? And I made up this word automagically and I do use it a lot. especially when I'm talking to younger people, because they think that things happen automatically and with magic, right? But it's just kind of not like that, right? So there is no auto magic to any of this. There's just hard work and determination, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, how would you say, and this is kind of a two-part question for both fields that you were in, right? How would you say the industry of football has changed when you started, and then the current industry that you're in terms of public speaking and community outreach?
So that's a great question. That's a real great question. So football has changed. I kind of wish I was around this new age of football. So it's really just money oriented a lot more now. So like we know it's a professional sport. We know even at the college level, a lot of money is produced, but to see NIL, to see the value that endorsements and personal branding has now beyond your contract, like how much money you can make just from having a personal brand and just having like a personality that is valuable to, people, groups of people, your fans. And so just seeing how much money is around the game now, I don't think is as competitive as it used to be. So it's not about like, hey, I want to be the best. I want to be one of the best of all time. It's like you don't see that drive from younger kids and athletes no more. It's more like, hey, I want to make the most money. I want to have the biggest brand. And I'm not knocking it. Eras change, but I do think the competitive side of sports is kind of toned down. And now you see more of the marketing and like entertainment side of sports really starting to take the, forefront. So that's what I think has changed about that side of like as far as that question, the sports side. But as far as my career, like speaking and community outreach, I think what's changed is it's like I don't want to use the word saturated, but it's like it's a lot easier. It's a way easier space to access now. Where like back in the day, or kind of like even just a few years that I started, like initially you kind of had to have some kind of expertise. That's why I chose to write a book first. You had to have some form of like expertise to be like, okay, this is a professional with expertise in some field. But now it's like if you have a nice YouTube following or you have a nice Instagram following, that's enough for people to consider you an expert or bring you in and say, hey, you have a following, like we'll listen to you. Like influence, I think having influence and followers is the new expertise, so to say, to where you can get in these spaces and talk to people if you have a big enough following. So learning how to like build a personal brand has changed everything on the sports side and business.
Okay, great. So, what would you say are some pros and cons of this field in terms of your business that you're working on now, right? Um, you know, inspiring and public speaking.
Could you repeat that again? I want to make sure I answer it right. I want to make sure.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. It's okay.
Yeah. No. Could you repeat that question for me?
Sure, like pros and cons, right? So I would consider a pro and con, a pros of public speaking, like you get to meet tons of people, right? Of course, in public speaking, you're going to, shake hands and get to know everybody. And maybe it's the influence that you have on the youth, right? To show them like, hey, you can still be just as powerful and just as influential in using your voice and talking about your experiences, right? Some cons might be, hey, you're always on the spotlight. People are always watching you. They're expecting the most from you. And that's hard to live up to somebody else's expectations, especially as a professional athlete. I would think that there's a certain level of expectations that just the general public have because of the job that you have. And that's hard when somebody is expecting something from you and you're still, especially at a very young age, when you've been given such a lucrative position, you don't even know what to expect from yourself,
Yeah, that's
right?
okay.
Maybe I answered the question for you. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. But, pros and cons are hard when it comes to an industry. And I always find myself kind of digging deep in that question and thinking, hey, what do I really value about what I'm doing right now? What are some takeaways and what are some things that, maybe I just need to work on better for myself?
Yeah. No, so that
But I
that's
don't want to put words in your mouth. So, pros and cons of your field.
yeah, so that and I don't want to rattle off just like some cliche pros and cons of speaking and working in this field, but if I had to really be honest, like you said, like what I value and what's really been, beneficial to me as far as like my intentions and purpose, I would say some pros to speaking is just realizing and seeing the impact you can have on somebody's life just with words. You know what I mean? Like you just your presence in words. Like my wife says it all the time about how just, words are powerful, words are powerful, words are powerful. I'm like, yeah, okay. But, you know, but seeing like a kid, like just the light bulb moment or seeing their face, like when you like give them some information that really connects to them, relates to them and empowers them, and they actually believe in what you tell them about themselves, or they believe in your story, so now they believe they can do it. So just seeing that, I think that's just that transformational power of just words. I think that's a real big pro I've noticed. Another pro, like you mentioned as well, is being able to network, being able to get in different rooms and see just how passionate, educators are. Because when I was growing up, you would think just teachers don't care about us, or they just here for a check, or I don't like this teacher. She didn't give me a passing grade. But when you really get on the other side of it, you just see like educators really are passionate about, just trying to make a difference in kids' lives. They're passionate about really making an impact because just with no disrespect, they don't make enough to deal with people, kids all day. And
Right.
so they're obviously there for something a little bit deeper than just income. So just like those, some of the pros that really stand out to me in my short experience in speaking. But like another would be just learning how to value my story. Like growing up, like when you go through a lot of traumatic experiences, when you go through, single mother, like growing up in poverty, all the adversity I had to go through just to make it to the NFL, and all the adversity I went through retiring, you think like, okay, I want to hide that stuff. Like I don't want to talk about that. But you realize that sharing your story and how much value your story has to like transform somebody else or make them feel seen or make them feel like, oh, if you can do it, I know I can do it. So like just really understand like my story and my pain and my trauma has value to other people because I overcame it. And it helps them see that they can do the same. So those are like the three biggest pros I would say. And cons is the number one is just standing in front of people talking. I don't think that's ever gonna get easier. Just standing there, going on stage, everybody waiting for you to come up there and say something powerful, like everybody watching you. Like, and I play football, so I'm used to having on a helmet and I'm locking in, so I really don't really get to see people looking at me. But to go on the stage, get a microphone, and like people are just staring at you, waiting on something special to happen, like that never gets easier. So that's one of the cons. But outside of that, I don't really think. Yeah. And the other, I guess, is knowing the power of transformation through words. I would say one con I've experienced is I can only be in one place at a time. Like it's so many kids that I would love to make an impact with. There's so many places I would love to be and go. I'm only one Jeremy. I have a wife and three kids myself, so I can't be everywhere and I'm not available all the time. So just I wish that just there were more people doing it and more athletes realizing these kids need to hear your voice, they need to hear stories.
That's completely understandable. And thank you for being vulnerable in that moment and telling us about, how you've had to overcome some of your own insecurities about public speaking and getting in front of people and, knowing that, hey, I might be judged or, I'm going to tell my story and be raw and vulnerable at this time. So definitely thank you for sharing that with us. What would you say is your biggest success factor? Obviously, making it to the NFL is like such a big success, right? Everyone sees that as just like the golden ticket, but what else do you see as a big success factor?
Something that took me every bit of 30 years and also being in therapy. Like I love my therapist, man. That's my guy. But I would say just learning to be myself. Like something that I think growing up, again, going back to your story and what you go through, sometimes you want to hide the reality of who you are and what you've been through a little bit, or you want to puff up your story a little bit. But just learning to just be myself. Like when I go in and work with youth or I go into, schools and organizations, I'm not a teacher, so I ain't gonna come here and act like a teacher, talk like a teacher, present myself like that at all. Like I'm not an educator in that regard. And I know I don't look like a traditional educator. I don't sound like a traditional educator. So I'm not gonna try to pretend to be something I'm not. I'm coming in as somebody who can relate to the people that I'm speaking to. And I can relate to them in a way that most educators can't because I've been there and I've been in their shoes. I've been that at-risk student. I've been that little kid, with no mentor and looking to see like, how do I make it out of my neighborhood? So just being myself, I realize that there's so much value in that. And I would say the best marketing strategy is it's only one Jeremy Butler. So I mean, I don't got
That's
to compete with nobody. I cheer everybody on. I don't got no hate for nobody, and I don't think nobody can stop what's for me. So it's only one me. I can only do me as best as I possibly can. Nobody else can do that.
that's awesome. And then you also mentioned that you have a therapist. I think as men, they shy away from, talking about their feelings, getting help with mental health, and, you know, um, not realizing early enough that maybe there's something else that they could gain from learning about themselves and exploring, their own mental health journey. So I'd like to thank you for bringing that up and being so transparent. I mean, um, that is something that I think that we all need to explore, but I know that sometimes men have a difficult time opening up. So thank you for exploring that, for being honest again and vulnerable and telling us that that's something that helps you to get through, your journey in your professional, I'm sure it helps in your private life and, just things that you need to work through. Um, so talking about, mental health and things like that, how do you maintain your work-life balance with everything that you have going on? Again, you mentioned there is only one Jeremy Butler, right? So how do you maintain that work-life balance? And how would you give it, what advice would you give to somebody that's starting out that just feels so overwhelmed in the process?
It's a Mr. Miyagi quote. It's slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Like slow down to go faster. That's all it is. Like just realizing that, man, like whatever you're gonna do, whatever, like that big vision, that big goal, it's gonna come, but it's not gonna come tomorrow. Like it's the small things that you do consistently. So just realizing, just slow down and focus on the things that really matter. If tomorrow was the only day you had promised, what are the most important things? And just realizing that you have to build around those. Like I built my life, I built my life around football once. And I seen that when football was taken away, how that kind of affected me like mentally. And so I'll never make that mistake again. Now I build my life around my wife, my children, and just like what's important to me, like my values. If it's not aligned with like my core, my values, if it's gonna take away from my family, my wife, me as a husband, me as a father, me as a man of God, if it's gonna take away from my principles, it ain't for me, and I ain't missing out on nothing if I have to step outside of what's important to me. So I build my life around what's important to me as opposed to making what's important to me fit into my career. So that's the biggest thing that I think people like. If I can share any advice, is just sit down in the office or sit down wherever you can and just lay out like what's important to me. When all of this is said and done, like, what am I really doing this for? And you build your life around that. And I actually make sure I have my intentional time with my children, my intentional time with my wife. I have my intentional time with myself. I make time for my therapist to keep my mental on point. I make time to go to the gym. And being the best version of myself is going to allow me to show up in my work. Like sports has taught me that like there's no such thing as like your professional career and your personal life. Like that's just your life altogether. Like the better I am as an individual, the better I can show up in my professional life. I think we've kind of been taught to separate the two where like don't mix business and pleasure, don't mix personal and business. But if I don't feel good at home personally, or me and my wife butting heads, trust and believe it's going to affect how I talk to some kids. It's That's just the
Right.
nature of the beast. And so learning that I got to be okay here and I got to have like my personal life grounded and like just like whole for me to really show up in my professional life and be the best version of myself. I can't show up with an empty cup. I got to make sure my cup is full so I can pour out and, bless others. So that's what I've learned about my work-life balance. Like there really is no such thing as like work-life balance. It's just having harmony in between those things. Where like thing like the type of person I am at home with my children, with my wife, I'm not a different person in public or in my profession. Like the kids at school, they get the same strong will, like discipline, like character. They get the same jokes I give my sons. They get the same discipline. Like, hey man, watch your language, do some push-up. Like they get the same like mindset and aspect from me as far as how I treat my sons, how I am at home. Like that's the beauty of what I get to do. I get to be myself at home and in my career.
Where do you see this industry going in the future?
That's
As
a
far
that's
as like you did mention social media quite a bit, right? Like if you have an influence, then you have a voice, you gain in popularity. Um, obviously social media is just going to get bigger, right? Folks with social media influence is just going to get bigger. There will be more influencers as time goes on. Um, how do you see yourself being more transformative into the social media aspect, or is still going into schools and public speaking arenas kind of more what you see yourself doing even in the future?
yeah. I think as far as the future, I believe as that influencer space grows, I believe within my industry, you're gonna see a lot of it's either one or two things are gonna have to happen. Either schools are gonna lose a lot of influence with the youth in the next generation to influencers, or schools are gonna have to swallow their pride and learn to collaborate with these influencers and like, hey, let's like for the ones who want to teach like, important values, the influencers who maybe have a different aspect of education or what education is and like per se life skills or business or learning about finance, learning about careers and trades. So I think in health, like in fitness, I think schools are going to have to learn to collaborate with that influencers or find some type of happy medium where there's a balance between the two of like there's nothing wrong with influencers, but how do we help kids decide what is the right influencer to follow? Who is the right person to be influenced by? Because influence isn't always a bad thing per se. I think that like one or two of those things has to happen in the future. It's going to be a crash course at some point. But for me, I think down the road, eventually, as I build enough influence and I build enough, traction within the schools and enough I guess proof and having, my programs and the things I'm doing in schools like really validated and, of course, growing my speaking expertise and brand. It gets to a point where it's like, hey, would it make more sense to start actually influencing some of these parents and students because you can get your own space. You can have your own, venue space where let's do some workshops here. You don't have to worry about what school you go to. This is for the community. All schools and parents are available, So I think at some point that's going to be a natural like branch for me to kind of like step into is how do I get some of these kids and some of these, parents in the district and this community that I'm working in and start bringing them out of the schools and into, being able to have more hands-on approach, more mentoring, bringing other, men with trades and things that I respect to teach these young men and teach these kids things they need to learn. Because I think school in a traditional sense is a little outdated. I think these kids need life skills, they need career skills, they need to understand different trades. Like it's a little limited with what they're learning as far as what's best for them long term. So I think that crash course of influence and education is it's going to crash a lot sooner than later.
Well, that's really good. Is there a piece of literature or manual that people resource in your field, or are there any like professional associations that help with, public speaking and kind of mentorship?
I would say Next Level Speakers Academy. One, that's a great program and community that I'm a part of. But also Toastmasters. Toastmasters had like that was my first like
Sure.
jump into like okay, I'm a little nervous to speak in front of people. Let me try Toastmasters, get in front of a smaller crowd, have someone who can actually critique me in a nice, controlled environment where it's not in front of hundreds of people. It's a small group that gets to see me make my mistakes and critique me and, have my best interests at heart where I can, grow with like-minded individuals. So Toastmasters and Next Level Speakers Academy, those two I would mention. But as far as literature, it's so much. You can always find something on public speaking, but the best way to grow in public speaking is just to practice speaking.
Kind of get out there and do it.
Yeah, just kind of jump out there in the water.
What advice would you give to someone looking to access this industry?
Advice, and I still feel like a baby in it. So for me to say, what advice would I give? I would say understand, like the two things I mentioned, understand how powerful words are. Like you can change the course of someone's life or their whole belief system with the right words at the right time. So being intentional with the words you speak and how you speak. So I would say just really value and understand that. And two, is just understand the importance and value of your story. Like the one thing that each and every person has unique to them is nobody else been through my exact steps, my footsteps in life. Nobody has my exact story. Maybe some resemblance, maybe some similar like parts or chapters of your life, but there's no Jeremy Butler like that. Nobody has Jeremy Butler's story, and learning to value that and use that to help other people overcome some of those same issues. I think those are the two biggest things. If you can get those two down, it makes it so much easier to frame a story. It makes it so much easier to present your stories. It makes it so much easier to understand like who am I speaking to, why am I speaking to them, and how can I help. It makes it so much easier.
Right. What would you say are your next career steps? And if you could talk to your younger self 15 years ago, what advice would you give?
My next career steps. I would love to. I would love to grow. I would love to grow in a way that allows me to bring on other athletes, other former athletes. So when guys retire, I know what they're going through. That I'm looking for purpose. I'm looking for my next thing. Like I'm like, where can I be valuable at? Where can I transition all these skills I learned and all these abilities and this influence? How can I use it for the better? And it's like bringing those guys into the public speaking and mentoring space and having a way to kind of like coach them and train them so they can go out, basically not replicate myself, but replicate the impact I'm looking to make within other people because other athletes have stories that I don't have. And they're in communities that I probably never get to go in or never have influence in. So just getting athletes and realizing that these kids really respect us and that we have so much influence and we can make so much of an impact in our community. So if I can get to a point where I can actually bring in other athletes and we can spread out as a team across the nation, that's like the ideal trajectory for what I want to, what I'm working towards. And what 15 years, that's, let me see how old I would be. I would be pretty, 15 years ago, that ain't bad. Okay, so I would say you're gonna do everything that you set out to do. I
Okay.
would tell myself, you're gonna do everything you set out to do. So you can relax and sleep a little better at night knowing that. Just know that. But the most important thing I would say is learn how to steward everything that you're gonna be blessed with. Because if you don't, you're gonna have to learn from some mistakes that could be avoided, and you're gonna miss some opportunities that you really, really make some life changing impact with. As far as in the NFL, that influence, as far as family, as like far as your community, like just really understand how to steward your blessings a lot better. So that's what I would
Right.
tell myself 15 years ago.
I do have a question. I kind of want to go back to your NFL days. The X is how do you manage for someone that may be in the NFL right now that's listening to this or a prospect, right? How do you manage your family expectations? Because I think that from the outside looking in, I'm going to give my perspective, right? you hear, oh wow, he's in the NFL. So you just assume wealth, you assume a certain status, you assume there's a lot of assumptions that those that don't know, like myself, make, right? How do you manage family expectations, um, then first gaining, this profession and then even now, because I think your family still might have those expectations and you just have to allow for yourself to have the space and capacity to realize that it's not what everybody thinks.
Man, again, that's another great question, and it's $1 million question. And I wish every pro athlete had. I wish they all understood the answer, but I would say just be honest. Like I think, especially in the minority community, once we make it, we always had this idea that we're gonna save everybody. We're gonna save everybody. Then you get there and realize Texas has another plan for you. Like you
Right.
don't make as much as you think you make. Even when you look at your contract, you don't make as much as your initial contract may say after taxes hit you. And so, and it's dangerous because in pro sports, all of the guys' contracts are, it's public information to go see guys' contracts. So I would say just be honest, like, hey, like, family, look, this is what, like, I'm being honest. I don't have free money to give away. I don't have this. You don't got to tell them the exact dollar amount, but I think being transparent about, hey, I'm not going to be giving money out for no reason. I'm not going to be the lifeline for everybody. I'm not going to be the emergency vessel for everybody. I'm like life or death. Yes, that's absolutely an opportunity for me to be a blessing to someone. But I'm not here to fund investments. I'm not here to fund businesses. I'm not here to pay bills, buy cars, buy homes. I don't have that kind of money. But if I actually steward this money the right way and I learn how to invest it, then yes, I may have an opportunity to be a blessing to you all later down the line. I think that's the biggest thing where if guys just be honest, like, look, we don't make as much as they say we do. We make great money, but not enough to go buy mom, dad a house, a new Cadillac, and invest in my cousin's real estate business. Like, I don't have that type of money. And two, I think just after, I think that's the hardest part, like you mentioned, like, is once you stop playing, everybody just assume you have millions of dollars in the bank. It's like, nah, like I had to start a business out. Like I had a nice chunk and a nice cushion, but no, I still have to understand how to make money work. I still got bills and responsibilities, and I still have to make income to provide. So just realizing that, I think just because most guys struggle with it where you'll see guys go years without getting a job, just scared to be seen like doing, I guess, what a civilian does, like go to work, because you think everybody else still looks at you as this big NFL millionaire, and it's like, man, you better get a job for them bills pile up. Like, go go find a career, go find out what's your next step gonna be. Like, go do some internship or something. But yeah, I think just being open, honest, and transparent. It's like, I mean, we don't make nowhere near as much as the TV says we do, because taxes will kill it. But I think just being transparent with your family and being real about what you can do. So,
Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry, I had to go back a minute because I think
no, no
that
problem.
again, there's just such a high level of expectation um, that might not be the case, by any means. I was raised by a single mom too, and so I think that you know there was a level of expectation there that just wasn't realistic when things started perpetuating in an upward motion for me, but it just wasn't what it was, what it was perceived to be. So I thank you for being transparent in that way. We're down kind of to the end now, but a couple last questions. Why are platforms like Functional Training Zone so important to young adults? And kind of like the things that you do with, your public speaking, with your influence. How is that important?
It's as I can't even measure how important it is because I remember vividly, like I remember clear as day what it was like to be a young a young kid, like I wanted to play football, but that's still like a big like dream, and like it's a big chance that that may not happen. But not having no plan B, like I never had a plan B. If football didn't work out, I literally had no idea what was next. Like, and so it's just the lack of information, and especially in an information age where there's so much information out there. Like these kids are talking about OnlyFans. They talk about what's going on in the streets. They talk about fast money. They talk about, being a rapper and all of these different things where it's like, so they don't have the information like of what it takes to be successful. Or I didn't like some of these kids, they don't even just have an idea that you can go make millions of dollars in HVAC, in a trade, being a speaker, starting a business. It's so many different, like you can get in tech, you can get in engineering, you can build homes and you can build like offices. Like you can do so many different things, and you guys provide that functional training zone, gives the information and kind of bridges that gap of like, oh, as a kid, I didn't know you can do all these different things. I didn't know it was this many six-figure careers. Like if I would have known what I know now, like the information you guys provide to students, I would have had a plan B and C. Like just okay, yeah, football don't work out. It's all good. Trust me, I got a career plan. If that don't work out, trust me, I got a business plan. Like because you guys provide the information and show kids like, hey, look, if you don't want to be successful in life or you want to try to take the easy route, we can't stop you from making that choice. But you can no longer say, I don't know better, because you guys provide the information for them and say, okay, hey, if there's another way out, if there's another opportunity, if there's another career, if there's different pathways for me to be successful, functional training zone provides that. So kids can't make that excuse and say, well, I didn't know any better. So no, like I think the information you guys provide it needs to be in partnership, and it needs to be in every education or anywhere as youth being served, because kids just really don't know better. And a lot of times their parents don't know better. So you guys provide tremendously valuable information.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, how can our listeners get in contact with you? If I am the principal of a school and I'm like, oh my goodness, I would love for Jeremy Butler to come and talk to my students. How do we get in contact with you? What is your social media? What is your Instagram? What's your website? And how can folks connect with you?
It's a good question. So I'm bad at remembering my social media names and stuff, but I think let's give it a crack. So YouTube is J Butler Senior. So that is Jay Butler Senior. LinkedIn is just Jeremy Butler. Instagram, I believe it is Butler Jay1. And my website, where you can see some of my topics that I speak on, some of the speaking work and the things I do with the schools, and how we collaborate. That is jeremybutler.org.
jeremybutler.org. Okay, so I'm looking at your website now. Everybody, it is jeremybutler.org. You can learn about who Jeremy Butler is, and there is a button that says Book Jeremy. So you can click that button, and it takes you straight to a page where you can put down your name, email information, organization, and you can get in contact with Jeremy right away. Thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today. I definitely learned a lot. For me personally, I've never spoken to an NFL player. I think my husband has a uncle that was in the NFL, but when I see him, honestly, we don't even talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Thank
taking the
you.
time out today to speak with us, to give us all of this knowledge, and to really, really dig deep into mental health, what we need to do to make sure that our cups are filled so that we give the best of ourselves to everybody. And to know that there's, a life after a retirement at 28, which is, God, I wish I could retire at 28 and then have this awesome career as a motivational speaker. Thank you very much, Jeremy Butler.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking with you. Thank you for those some great questions. So I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't even know what that means. No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not.
It gets the people going.
It's
No!
It's your boy JR dropping them beats.